Hi, I'm Krista Campbell. Before we get started today, I'd like to encourage you to ask questions. You can post your questions in the questions dialog box at any time during the webinar. We will have time at the end of the webinar for Q&A. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the water utility space on GeoNet as well as the Esri Water Meetup group. You will receive a follow-up email that includes links to these locations. It takes a few days to publish the recording, so you can expect it to be available towards the end of next week. Thank you for joining us for Modernizing with Cloud-Based GIS. Today's agenda, I will start with a short discussion about the cloud. Then Rogue Valley Sewer Services will share how they have moved into the cloud and how this has enabled them to achieve their goals. What is the cloud? It's described differently depending on who you ask. I asked Google and found several definitions. Microsoft describes it as a global network of servers, each with a unique function. It is a vast network of remote servers around the globe, which are hooked together and meant to operate as a single ecosystem. CNBC has a similar definition. They describe it as a global network of servers around the world acting as one massive hard drive. PC Magazine simplifies the cloud by describing it as just a metaphor for the internet. Working at Esri, I hear a lot about the cloud computing, cloud services, geospatial cloud, and more. When I think about the cloud, from an Esri perspective and my experience, I think about ArcGIS Online. This is Esri's cloud-based mapping software. You're probably familiar with it, or at least have heard of it. It enables you to connect people, locations, and data using interactive maps. ArcGIS Online is intuitive to use. It includes tools that help you to make maps, but also perform analysis. What's most exciting to me is that it enables WebGIS. What I mean by WebGIS is that it allows you to configure and implement applications that support field and office workflows by using the web. Staff are able to see the same information from wherever they are working, in the field, in the office, in their car, at home. If you've used ArcGIS for some time, you know that this ability to share information is a lot easier than it used to be, and it's leading to some amazing capabilities. I also think about managed cloud services. I'm not an expert in this area at all, but I know that Esri offers managed cloud services. It's an option to have GIS experts manage and host your ArcGIS platform in the cloud. This service can support a 100% cloud approach or add to existing capabilities that you've already implemented. Managed cloud services make it easy to get up in the cloud quickly, and Esri provides the ongoing support to your organization. There are also Esri partners that support managed cloud services. Rogue Valley Sewer Services uses Rock Technologies. And there's also the Esri Geospatial Cloud. The Esri Geospatial Cloud pairs the computing power of the cloud with the strength of the ArcGIS platform. It includes all software and software as a service offerings. The architecture is engineered for high performance in the cloud environment, in on-premise environment infrastructures, and in hybrid approaches. Many of you are probably using the Geospatial Cloud, and maybe you just haven't heard this term before. The way I understand it is that the term Esri Geospatial Cloud is a way to describe how the strength of ArcGIS is paired with the computing power of the cloud. And why are organizations using the cloud? Well, Forbes reports that the leading factor driving cloud adoption is digital transformation. The hostingtribunal.com website says that the leading factor is accessing data from anywhere. To me, this goes hand in hand with what I'm seeing at Esri and what our customers are doing. Water organizations that I've worked with often have to move to the cloud or digitally transform so that they can enable these applications that I mentioned earlier. They're using ArcGIS Online to support field and office workflows, providing up-to-date and accurate information to their staff via the applications like Collector for ArcGIS and web apps and dashboards. And it's something that I'm seeing a lot. I definitely agree with the research that I found when reading about why are people using the cloud. Now, as you might have guessed, if you've attended a webinar before with me, I have a polling question for you. All right, are you using GIS in the cloud? Yes, I'm using ArcGIS Online. Yes, I'm using ArcGIS Enterprise with Managed Cloud Services. No, but I'm planning to in the future. And no, I don't have any plans at this time. For this polling question, you can choose more than one answer. So if more than one applies to you, please choose both. Are you using GIS in the cloud? Yes, ArcGIS Online. Yes, ArcGIS Enterprise with Managed Cloud Services. And that can be Managed Cloud Services with Esri or one of our partners. No planning to in the future though, and no plans at this time. Looks like a few of you haven't voted yet. If you could just take a second to pick the most appropriate answer. Looks like a majority of you are using ArcGIS Online, about 58%. We have about 30% planning to in the future, and we've got about 15% of you using managed cloud services. Great, thank you for answering the poll. Joining us from Rogue Valley Sewer Services is Carol Bowser and David Porvis. Carol is a network administrator. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Southern Oregon University. She worked at the Jackson County Administrator's Office and Jackson County Health and Human Services prior to being hired in 1991 as the Executive Secretary to the General Manager. In 1998, she was promoted to Administrative Assistant in Engineering. In 2003, she was promoted to GIS Specialist in the Engineering Department. Then in December of 2005, Carol was promoted to Network Administrator. David is a GIS technician. He earned his Bachelor's of Arts in Geography from the University of Hawaii at Hilo. He worked for Rogue Valley Sewer Services since March of 2015. Prior to working at Rogue Valley, he was a GIS specialist for the Pueblo of Sandy Tribal Administration in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Carol?
Hi, I'm Carol Balzer. I am the network administrator here at Rogue Valley Sewer Services, and I can't believe I've been doing this job for 14 years. The GIS in the cloud for Rogue Valley Sewer Services has been a godsend, but let's get into who we are, where we are, and then go over the before and after, the general sense, and then David is going to continue on my PC with examples and more details. We are Rogue Valley Sewer Services, located in Southern Oregon in the Rogue Valley Basin, about 30 miles north of the Oregon border. We were established in 1966 by a vote of the citizenry in the valley. We are a government agency. We serve about 22,000 customers and have 36 employees over 6 departments in 3 different locations. So the inspections that we perform are TV and flushing every 5 or 3 years, depending on which type of inspection we do, over our entire system. That's our goal. We have 29 pump stations that we inspect at least monthly, and we administer the DEQ stormwater quality MS4 requirements for pre-construction, construction, and post-construction as needed. The challenges we had before we went to the cloud, our data was saved everywhere, in various locations, various software, even sometimes only in paper form. The maps that were viewed in-house were on ArcGIS desktop, and in the field on laptops with ArcReader, or sometimes on paper when the TV and flushing crews were doing their inspections. The laptops had to be updated manually, so it could be that, and usually was, that one laptop had one set of data, another laptop had older data. So it got to be a little distracted, I suppose you could say. Inspection tracking was redundant, where TV and flushing crews would fill out a piece of paper, hand it into our maintenance clerk who would then manually enter the data into the database. And the map changes were requested on paper and back to the laptops being updated manually at various times and with various data. Our inspectors who were in charge of doing the map changes, updating the maps, would get multiple requests for the same change. And that got to be a little confusing. So this is a kind of a visual graphic, I suppose, of our previous system where nothing was connected. It was clunky, to say the least. And you all are saying, how ever did we talk management into this cloud system? We didn't. Our manager actually pushed for this, so that made it a lot easier for us to go for it. Now, the inspections that we do, the TD and flushing and the map changes, are all through applications that are map-based. We use Esri Collector and Survey 123 to collect data and save it all in the cloud database. We also use Workforce to schedule various tasks for all of our inspections, including our stormwater inspections. And all the maps are viewed online and are updated to the minute, which is really helpful for all of our field crews. The map changes, there's only one for each because everybody knows that a map change has been requested for a certain location, and our inspectors really appreciate that. So now this is how we look. We have a central GIS system with all of our other types of inspections around it and our maps as well. In order to get the data from our GIS cloud to the managers who need to know what's going on, we use multiple options. Crystal Reports provides most of our reports. We use Esri Dashboard. David will go into some of that in his presentation. And we also use Insights for a snapshot of what's out there. And now it is time for David.
All right, good morning. My name is David Porvis. I'm the GIS technician here at Rogue Valley Sewer Services. And I'm going to go through some of the steps we took to get moved into the cloud and just how we are harnessing the power of GIS overall here. And what led us to want to go into the cloud in the first place. Carol touched on this some. We had a lot of siloed data. Data was really kind of spread around on different network servers. We had some people with data sets on their own desktops, and so you never were really sure if you were getting the most up-to-date information. It was really kind of a challenge making sure everybody was on the same page data-wise. And that wasn't only true with our internal data, but also any data we got from other agencies. And we rely on Jackson County quite a bit for our data. We use their addressing layers and their tax lot layers quite a bit. And so we were constantly having to go to their website, download a data set, and then push it onto various users' machines. And so it was quite a challenge making sure everybody had the most recent data set. And another issue was we wanted people to be able to have this information while out in the field. So we kind of developed a GIS platform vision, and it looks a lot like what Carol just showed. You have everybody kind of around this GIS central database, and depending on what role they have, they're either reading or writing or doing both into this central database, and they're getting the most up-to-date information. They're getting information instantly on their devices, some of the initial steps we took, we were really introduced to the cloud environment with the free version of ArcGIS Online that came with ArcGIS Desktop. And it was limited to 4 users, so we sort of started out pushing some publicly available maps and just kind of playing around with it, and we were really impressed with it because it was, it was instantly I could go in and change something on that layer, and everybody who was connected to it would see it right away. So we started to realize that our field crews were using our public-facing map more than some of the downloaded static maps that they were using through ArcReader, and so it was kind of on our mind. We were thinking, well, we want to move to some sort of server-based technology, and right around that time we got in contact with the Esri Water Group, and they introduced us to the Esri Enterprise Advantage Program, the EAP, and it fulfilled all our needs, it looked like. So we ran it by our manager, who was really excited about it. He approved it, and as well as our board of directors, and so we were off and running at that point. And so we started with Esri Managed Cloud Services, and that was kind of through the first year. And what we found is that their service package was more designed for people that already had an enterprise install, and we were kind of unique in that we were just starting from scratch. We didn't have an enterprise install at all on site. We just had geodatabases, and so we ended up moving to Rock Technologies out of South Carolina, and we've been with them ever since. Most of our sanitary network was really sorry, let me back up. The sanitary network is really our only data set internally that was complete, and it was because it was being run in an ArcMap InfoSwim model. And so at some point our manager had gone through, and over the course of, I want to say, a couple of years even, he digitized all of the network off of our record maps, which were in AutoCAD format. So we had that to start with, and so that was going to be our first focus, was getting that sanitary sewer network pushed into the cloud. And we chose to go with the utility network schema, which is downloadable. There's a download link here at the bottom, and it's just an empty geodatabase, but it has all the fields pre-populated. There's some domains in there, as well as all these layers you can see here. Honestly, we don't use a lot of those layers right now, but they're still in our database in case we need to in the future. And we went through that geodatabase and modified it to our own needs. We added some fields, removed some, certainly added quite a few domains and things like that. So this is what our structure currently looks like. You can see in the middle here we have ArcGIS portal and the production geodatabase server. That's the portion that RockTech is managing, so they take care of installing SQL Server and getting Enterprise spun up in portal and server and so on. And then I'm really responsible for configuring portal once it's installed. So I add all the users, take care of all the web map creation and things like that. So our staff will access portal to get to their web maps and through collector and different viewers and things like that. And then for direct editing of the database, I actually use an Amazon Workspace desktop environment, it's a virtual desktop. And that's something for like doing big database edits, scripting, adding or removing features, taking care of these map changes that come in. And some of the advantages of using Amazon Workspaces is you can access it from anywhere. And it's a really secure environment, so this way RockTech they only need to worry about one desktop, essentially, having direct access to the database. So I'm able to log in from anywhere into that virtual desktop and access the geodatabase. Actually, the other day I was at home. I had a day off, and I got a call from one of the guys in the field who said, "Hey, I need some lines put into the system," because they were doing some TV work. So I was able to hop onto the workspace, and it took me about 45 minutes, and got everything configured, and just gave him some lines to at least work off of, and then I could come back into the office the next day and fill in the details. So that way they could continue working. They weren't stuck with nothing to tie their information to. So, and some of the other things about the Amazon Workspace, it's extremely fast. The edits are a lot smoother than if you're trying to do it from your own desktop. And it's really easily upgradable too. So we started with a 4 CPU, 8 gig machine, We found it really wasn't meeting our needs. And so I said, hey, I'd like to upgrade, and they can do that instantly because it's all virtualized. So literally within we were in a Zoom meeting or something, and I said I needed to upgrade, and they were able to implement that right away. So we're currently using a 4 CPU 16 gig package, which they call the Power package. And something I think to keep in mind is if you decide you want to use ArcGIS Pro in a virtual environment on Amazon Workspaces, you will need a graphics card package. And we chose to not go with that at this time just because the price is quite a bit more. But you know, it's my understanding that ArcMap will probably be discontinued in coming years, so we may have to upgrade that. Just to give you an idea of some of the network speeds as well, we did some speed tests on the Amazon Workspace. You can see we're getting close to 700 megabits a second, which is really, really fast. And it's great for if I need to do a software upgrade on the Workspace, I can download the entire software package in no time at all. And the pings are really great as well. You know, just single-digit pings right there. So once we got everything, we got our data pushed into the cloud, we started to create some mobile apps. And part of the EAP program is that they sent out some of the Esri employees to do what's called a web launch. So they were here on site to help us kind of get started. And one of the first apps that we created was the map changes app for use in Collector. And Carol went over this a little bit. They were previously submitted on paper, and I have a picture there. They would fill out a form of the pipe ID, the date, person who's submitting it, and then some supporting documents that have screenshots of their maps and things like that. And so those would kind of pile up on my desk, and you know, I'd put them off sometimes, and then I just have this huge pile of papers, and there's really no way to track which ones were finished. You know, besides on the piece of paper itself, I'd initial and put a date on it, and then I'd put that into a folder. But if I needed to go back and look for that, I have to go through that folder, and it was really cumbersome. So now that we have the app, they can just get onto their tablet and submit a map change right away. And when they do that, I have a web app that I developed and I just did this in the Web Builder app. It took maybe a couple hours to put this together, and it gives me a table of all of the outstanding map changes. And this is a live view. This is our real data. So you see here, Paul submitted one on 9/13. So I can go there. I can zoom. It click zoom to, takes me right to the location, and he has a little description there. You need to add a missing service line, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of track what was sent, how long it took me, and we start running some metrics on it. So our manager has actually set some performance goals for us, and one of mine are to get to these map changes within a certain time period. So in the background on the table, we have editor tracking enabled. So there's a created date, a last edited date, the last user, and so on. And we can run some metrics on that and create reports. So that's been great. And within this environment, I can mark them as completed. So I would say, you know, the GIS needs to be updated, it's marked to yes. I would change that to no. And as soon as I do that, it drops off the map for everyone. So it's still on the database, it's still in the database, but it's for the viewers that are just needing to see the most recent ones that haven't been completed yet, they won't see the completed ones. So, and then the next app that we created was one for the TV crew to use. And the old workflow was they would come to me and ask for a plot of the area that they're working in, and they would take that plot of this sanitary sewer system and they'd mark it up with highlighters, and that's sort of how they were tracking their day-to-day progress. And then they keep these in folders so they could go back to them later. And that was kind of the spatial side of their workflow. And then the data side was what Carol had mentioned. They would fill out a form with all the details of the pipe ID, the work that was done, the footages, and so on. And they would bring that into the office, and we had a staff member that would put that into an Access database. So if you wanted to look that up, you could get the information, but you were missing that spatial element. The two were disconnected. So now using Collector, we're able to tie that all together. And I have a little video clip here. Let's see if we can expand that. So our crews are using iPads, so it's just an iOS, and they can open Collector, and the GPS portion of Collector will take them right to their location. This one is taking us to the office here, but typically they'll be on a line, so then it takes out a lot of the guesswork for them. They know which line that they're currently sitting on. And they'll select that line, and that's what this video is showing. And then they can get some information about it, make sure that they're on the correct line. And then for this particular app, I narrowed the fields that they could edit down to only the date. So they'll choose edit, they'll only see the date here. And then they can update that date. So the last TV date, they'll change it to today's date, which is a little bit older video, so it's just showing from 2018. But as soon as they do that, you can send the updates, and we have the map symbolized to show which pipes have been done recently, and the more recent ones have been done are colored blue. So as soon as they send that, it turns to blue, and this is for everyone throughout the organization. So that's one of the key factors to being on the cloud, is that everybody's viewing the same data set. We get away from that whole problem of people having different versions of the data. So some of the other collector apps that we created a flushing tracking app, which is almost identical to the TV app. And that was really easy because I could really just model one app after the other. And then we also implemented some flushing requests capabilities in the TV app. So if the TV crew's out there and they see something that needs to be flushed, they can send a request. And we actually have GeoEvent server running in the background that will send out email notifications, and we can configure that to send emails or text messages. So far, we're only using the email portion. And we've also done a couple of stormwater apps. So we have a stormwater vault inspections app and an impervious area calculations app. So one of the nice things about the new apps is that you can interconnect them. So if you decide that you want to use Collector in conjunction with Survey 123, it has the capability to do that. So here I have a screenshot of one of our stormwater inspections apps. It's for our 1200C compliance. The inspectors can start in Collector and go to a site and open it. As soon as they click on the site, they'll get some information here, permit number, project name, and so on. And there's a customized link that will then send them into a form in Survey 123. And that form is able to grab the information from the feature. So you can start to set up a lot of autofilling. And that really cuts down on hand entry errors. Because what we were finding with Access databases, you have the tendency it's very error prone if you're doing a lot of hand entry. So this is sort of what it looks like here in Survey 123. And really, we decided. So we had a list of apps that we wanted to tackle first, and the way we identified those was primarily through any that were using paper workflows. So just depending on the depth of the paper form, they kind of determine whether we would decide to use Collector for just filling out a few fields, or if something was a little longer, we would then jump over to Survey 123. So that's something to think about. If you have like a really large paper form, I would suggest using Survey 123 and maybe tying it to Collector if you want to do that, or you can just use it separately. So once we get all that data into the cloud, we can start creating web apps. And these are browser-based, which is nice, so you don't have to worry about configuring it for anyone. If anybody has access to a browser, they can access the maps. So I have a few examples here. This one is our public-facing map. This one is actually on ArcGIS.com. So like I said, we started in that cloud environment, and so we kind of set up our system such that the ArcGIS.com side is for public use, and our portal is for internal use. I think eventually we'll probably merge those together and use just primarily portal, but for now, just because of security issues, it's nice to just use ArcGIS.com for our public-facing map. So here's a map of our system. You can see all the different basins on here. People can search for their address, so we'll just go ahead and do an address search for our current location here at Rogue Valley Sewer. And this is using the Jackson County geocoder. So like I said before, I can feed in data from other agencies, and that's been a really great part to the web map system. I don't have to worry about updating these address points. As soon as Jackson County updates them, the updates show up here. So that's been really great. But see, the public can plug in an address, kind of get an idea of what sewer lines are around. One of the things we like to do in the future is have some sort of switch there that say, yes, we serve you, or no, we don't. But so far, they still need to call in to get that information. But our technicians will use this map actually a lot of times to determine if sewer is available for a given property. So they can go in here, and there's a couple of fields available for the different pipes and manholes and so on. And they can also access our record maps. So so we have kind of, if they need a more detailed view, they can get that by clicking on this link here, which will then jump into a record map, which looks like this. So this is going to show a lot more detail as far as permits and actual pipes on a given property. And that would probably be used more by developers and engineers and people like that. So that's our public-facing map of our system. We also put together a stormwater map of our low-impact development sites. So what these are sites where systems have been put in place to mitigate the effects of stormwater runoff. So we've got things like bioswales here, and they're divided into different tabs, and you can get an idea of where they are in the valley. If you click through them, it'll pop up. So this has been great for public information. They can go on here and see if there's one nearby. Just kind of show some of the work that we've been doing. Different stormwater. There's a stormwater planter at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival building. So, and we also have a capital projects map that we put together for the engineers. They wanted to be able to share this information out of projects that we're currently working on. So they would go through and create these screenshots for me to upload, and it just gives a really detailed view of what they're doing in a given area. So this one looks like an aerial out of Google Earth, perhaps, but they've added some extra information here. They're extended. There's a ditch that's going to be piped, and they're going to put in a storm detention basin here, and so on. So this has been another thing that's been really great for getting information out to the public. So now we'll move on to some of the web apps that we've created for employees, and these ones are served out from our portal. So the primary one that we use the most is the Rogue Valley Sewer Services Inspector map, and this one was really created at first just for the inspectors, just based on some requests that they had made. But what it's really turned into is kind of a catch-all map with all of our data. So you can see there's quite a few layers over here. A lot of these are our own data, but some of them are served in from the county, and I think there's a few from maybe even Department of Transportation, sorry. But it has quite a bit more functionality. So like I have a query set up here. They can look by owner name, they search tax loss by owner name, tax account numbers if they have that, and also our sewer gravity mains. They can search by facility IDs. So this one has been pretty useful. I'd say this is probably our most used internal map. Let's see if we can get some of this information to load. Sorry about the zooming there. There we go. So when they click on a line, there's quite a bit more information here. It's got things like the downstream, upstream elevation, things that the public aren't going to be necessarily interested in, but our engineers want to be able to see. So that's an example of one of our web apps that we use internally. And Carol had touched on the dashboards that we serve out. So we created I have two dashboards so far. One for, well, there's more than two, but two that are primarily used for flushing in TV. And this is actually a live view of our flushing work that we're doing. So you can see this is 9:19 today, about a half an hour ago actually. There's a list of everything that they worked on for this day. So there's a date picker over here. It's just defaults to today's date. But they, if somebody comes in, one of the managers or the crew lead needs to see what work has been done, they can use this dashboard to get the information they need. So when they click on a line, it will take them right to it. You can see they're up working in this area right now. And they can also get a history on that line. So that particular line, 9974, you can see there's flusher 1, flusher 2, all the different work that's been done on there, going all the way back to 2017, looks like. So there's just a breadth of information that they can get from the server, and it's instant, it's up to date. So what last updated a minute ago. So that's been great for our crews. And one thing I'm finding is that the more they use these, the more ideas they come up with. And so that's what this widget, that's how this widget down here at the bottom kind of came about. I was approached by the flushing crew lead. He said he needed a way to track his performance for a given month. And like I was saying earlier, how we all have performance goals that we want to meet. The flushing crew has one, I believe it's 5 years they need to flush.
Flushing is 3.
Oh, flushing is 3, that's right. So I think it actually says right here. Yeah. So every 3 years they need to flush the whole system. So he needed a way to know where he was in the current month, as far as his goal, to know whether he could pull off and do some other special projects. So I put together this little dial here, just kind of show him where his progress. The red portion being the minimum that he needs to meet, and his goal at the end of the dial there. Actually, looks like they're a little behind this month because I think they had quite a bit of special projects they were working on. But this has been a huge benefit for him to be able to plan his month out. And this was another request that I had gotten from the flushing crew lead. He will get flushing requests from the TV crew, and they were originally just done in email format. We had GeoEvent sending out emails, but he was finding it problematic to track those because it would get buried in his email, and he wasn't sure whether he had been to the given line or what, one of his crews had been there or not. So he asked me if I could put together a map for him. So I put together this dashboard. It didn't take me very long, and I was able to pull off the table and create a list for him of all the outstanding current flushing requests. And you can click on the table. It takes him right to the line. We get the line ID, and then if he actually clicks on the polygon there, you can get some details about it. So this one says there's debris in the line, approximately 249 feet. And we set a severity level there, so 3 being not as severe, 1 being the most severe. So if one comes in with a severity level of 1, it's going to show up here in the urgent flushing requests widget. So, and this goes with that theme of the more people start to use it, you'll start to get more and more ideas, and it kind of snowballs on it. It's like a snowball effect where you start getting a lot of requests, and it's been great because it's a lot of work for us.
Well, yeah,
so,
job security.
Yeah, job security, but they really come up with quite a few ideas. So some of our future plans, we've got some other apps planned. Primarily we want to go after a fog inspection app, which is Patch Oils and Grease program. And Esri actually has a restaurant inspection app out there that we took a look at, and I showed it to our program manager, and he said, "Wow, it looks great." So I'm hoping maybe I can just model that after the restaurant inspection app. We also have a complaints app and a notification system that we want to roll out. That's somewhat implemented right now, but we just have to get staff trained on it. And then later down the road, we want to be able to connect to some of our existing internal systems. So we have Springbrook, which is a billing software, financial software, and so we want to be able to connect to that so the people out in the field have access to customer information. And with that, thank you all for your time, and I think I'll turn it back over to Krista.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, David. We do have several questions coming in, so we will jump to our questions and answers section. Great. So one of the questions, actually several of the attendees asked about your story map and if we were going to be able to share it. Yes, we will. If you see here on this slide at the bottom, harnessing the power of GIS, I've added a bit.ly link. Excuse me. This will take you to the story map that David was showing. And just a disclaimer, some of the maps aren't going to come up because they're internal, but you will have access to the links that he has put in the slides. Particularly, I know we had some attendees asking about that schema link. So if you have any problems accessing that, or if you're not able to get to it, shoot me an email. David and I will be happy to help you out. Okay, now on to the other questions. There were a couple questions about your managed services. I know you said you started with Esri and now you're using Rock. Can you talk about how that transition happened from where you were with desktop and the little bit of exploring you had done with ArcGIS Online and the time frame that it took you to get up into the cloud?
Sure. I believe it might have been, it was either January or February of, anyway, whatever year it was we started. I can't remember when that was now, but that our manager said, hey, you know, I really want to get going on this. And that was at a manager's meeting, and I came back to my desk and there was a voicemail from Jeremiah at Esri saying, hey, are you interested in this? And it was a match made in heaven. It took the agreement and figuring things out for legal stuff took probably 6 months. Excuse me. But, and then, so it was about August of that year that we were able to get everything transferred over and put on the cloud. They came in October, I think, to do the, I forget what you called it, but
the web launch.
The web launch. There was a lot of releasing security in order for us just to create the one map change app. We did select a more secure, more stable environment, and that might have been part of our problem, where in order to make new apps, it was next to impossible. So we didn't create any new apps until we went to RockTech, which was the following year. And since we went to RockTech, it, I don't know how many, I mean, we've created apps, dashboards, all sorts of things that we weren't able to do before, since we have more access to our data and more access, more freedom to play around, more or less, in our database.
So it sounds like it was a bit of a transition, not just the legal part and the contracts, but figuring out exactly what you wanted and what security levels you needed to have.
Yes. Yeah, it was quite restrictive using EMCS as we manage cloud services. And again, it might have been because we wanted it to be up 95% of the time or whatever. And now we do go down every once in a while, but RockTech has been so quick to respond that we're down for a few minutes, really. It seems.
Yeah, they've been really responsive.
Yeah,
it's been great. Yeah.
One nice thing about them being on the East Coast, at first it seems like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do if something happens in the afternoon when they're closed? Well, the Jasons there are two of them, tend to camp out on their phones and wait for somebody to say, hey, I need help, and they're right there. Another thing is David can, well, David works with it more, so maybe I should let David answer.
Yeah, and the time difference actually has worked out really well, because if there's any kind of maintenance or anything that needs to be done on the server side, they can do that before we even start work here, because they're 3 hours ahead. So that's actually been really nice. If they need to reboot the server or anything, that's all done in the morning. So before we
That's great. It's nice to hear they're doing a great job. As they're Esri partners, so we always like to hear our partners are doing well. Let's get on to a couple other questions before we run out of time. We did have a question about the link that you shared for the AutoCAD drawings. Some of the audience is curious about how you link that within your web map.
Okay, so AutoCAD has this new web-based service. It's called Drive. So what we do is we have what are called DXF files. It's just a
read-only, maybe?
It's a read-only version of an AutoCAD drawing. So I upload those to the AutoCAD website, and then there is a shareable link there. And then within I have a polygon layer on our server, and there's a field with those links in it. So then in the pop-up, I just configure it to point to that link, and it jumps to the AutoCAD website.
Yeah, so as long as you have images that are shareable, you can create the link within your GIS and it'll open them. Very cool. Yeah, a lot of people ask me about that when I'm at conferences. They want to know how to do exactly what you showed, just link to either engineering drawings or maybe plan and profile drawings, that type of a thing. Okay,
you do need to have a subscription and an admin login, and so we use my login to keep that going.
And they've been doing quite a few changes at AutoCAD with this with their cloud services. So it was down for a couple of weeks. And that's really, I mean, honestly, that's when I start to realize how much people are using something, is when it goes down. So I was contacted a lot over those couple of weeks by our field crews.
That is the truth.
Yeah.
We had a couple other questions, David, about how you synced the Survey 123 and the Collector app together, using them within each other. I saw that you had that link there. Can you just speak to that a little bit and describe how that worked? And was it difficult? Was it easy?
Sure. So there's a blog for Survey 123, and there were some directions on there on how to do that. The link has to be formatted in a certain way to open Survey 123, and it's only, I don't believe it works on a desktop. You would have to be on a mobile device for the link to work. But same way I do with those basin polygons to link to the AutoCAD website, it's very similar. It's HTML driven actually in Collector, and you just drop that link in there, and there's some formatting to grab different fields from your database to push them onto Survey 123. So I don't have the link to that actual blog, but I think you can do a web search for it and probably find it pretty easily.
Correct. A couple other questions we have are really around your staffing and how much dedicated time it takes to keep these apps running and the service in the cloud current. Can you talk about your GIS support team, whether they're full-time staff or part-time staff?
Well, you're talking to them, and we are, and David is actually the guy, the GIS extraordinaire, I'd say. But I used to do it. I can navigate through GIS, but I have not even been trained, which is a bad thing, in our cloud services. So that's something that we have a goal to do, is teach me how to do it in case David's not available.
Yeah.
If he goes out to some cruise somewhere and isn't available by phone.
Available by cell phone, yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
talk about job security.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Well,
we work quite a bit with Rock Tech for the tech side. So I have my tech support there, and with the EAP program as well, we have a tech advisor, and she's great.
We're still meeting with them every 2 weeks over the phone. We have phone meetings.
Great. Yeah, a lot of organizations only have 1 or 2 staff that support GIS, and even not even full time. So it's kind of nice to see you guys sharing what you've accomplished with with just the two of you?
No, it's just all David.
Yay, David!
I really can't take any credit for this besides.
It's been quite it was, you know, a learning process really, because neither of us had experience in the enterprise environment. So, you know, in that regard, it was kind of a good thing that we were more restricted that first year with the MCS, because I couldn't get in and break things. So now that I'm more comfortable with it, I'll go in and we
break things. No.
Yeah, no, well, but I can go now into some of the portal managers and ArcGIS Server Manager and things like that. I'm comfortable in that environment, especially than I was in that first year. So.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We have a couple other questions. Let's go back to some of the demonstrations you were showing, David. We have a couple questions about the dashboards that you were using, and then more specifically concerning the like map changes and edits that are going on in your GIS. Is there a way that you communicate work being completed, or is it really just that, real time, the staff see that it's done and they know that it's completed?
Sure. So on their app, I have a filter set on the web map to only show map changes that haven't been completed. So if they show up to an area and they realize a map change needs to be done, but there's already one there, then they won't have to submit another one. But as soon as I complete it on my web app, there's a switch there of whether it needs to be updated, and when they send it, they say yes, it needs to be updated. When I receive it and complete it, I change that to no, and as soon as I change it to no, that filter is active and drops the map changes off of everyone's web apps.
Oh, okay, great. So they can see it just in real time as you do the work.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah, and of course the lines will update accordingly as soon as they refresh their maps. So as soon as I change anything in the system, they'll have to zoom in or out sometimes, but it'll show up right away.
And the inspectors the inspectors work on and update the AutoCAD drawings. David updates anything that's not quite right on the GIS side, but when a map change is submitted, it emails it, doesn't it?
Yeah. We actually have GeoEvent server running, and I didn't go over that, but we have GeoEvent server running, and it will depending on which switches they enable. There's a filter within there to decide who gets the emails. So. I don't have a live view of because I'd have to share it from an iPad and wasn't able to do that, but.
Oh, that's all right. I'm putting you on the spot here. No, that's good. Okay, a couple more questions. Just we'll wrap it up after this. Can you discuss, or I guess maybe we should ask you first, are you using a CMMS or some kind of asset management software that's connected to these apps or the work that you're doing here?
No, we are not currently.
Okay.
I'll take on Springboard side right now.
Well, asset management meaning just for our pipes or other assets?
All of them. So really just like the bottom line is, are you using like a CityWorks or a Lucity or a Cartograph or one of those systems? Not yet. Okay, but you did mention doing some CCTV work. I have a few questions asking about what system you're using for that, and is it integrating with your GIS?
We use PipeTech, which is the CCTV program that the TV crews have in their trucks. So that does all the recording and managing of all the video files. And it does interconnect with our GIS in a way. There's, I believe, this ArcGIS engine running in the background. So they'll have a map open within PipeTech that's kind of running an ArcMap on one screen, and when they select a line, it will pull that information into PipeTech. So it's really separate right now. We'd like to get it connected in the future, though.
It's still old school where we have to manually update that PC to the current data, and so it's not live update.
Well, it sounds like you're headed in that direction, though. You guys are doing some great work.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for participating in the webinar today. I think you both did a great job. I appreciate you taking all the time to answer the questions. For everyone that's still on the webinar, I hope you join us for our next one and have a great day.